We are live. My name is Gabe Howard, and I am the host of the Not Crazy podcast. And with me, as always, is my long-suffering ex-wife, divorced wife, gone, kicked her to the curb, got rid of her, no longer married.
Yeah, he's the one who did the kicking.
My current friend, previous wife, current ex-wife, and current producer of my podcast and co-host of the Not Crazy podcast, Lisa Kiner. Lisa, wave to the people.
Hi.
That's it. That's what we're going to be doing for the next hour.
Yeah, I can do it. I'm ready.
All right.
I've been practicing. Look, see? Nice, huh? Yeah.
All right, listen up, everybody. Here is how this works, and it is uber simple. If you have a question about bipolar disorder, depression, schizophrenia, anxiety, whatever you have a question about in the mental health, mental illness, and or psychology space, put into the comments below. Now, listen, we need some things from you. Shorter questions are so much easier to answer. We put them on the screen so that people know what we're talking about, so that when Lisa and I can debate them back and forth. So if you send us a book, we don't have time to read it. And we can't project it on the screen. So short questions work way better. Don't worry about the details. We'll figure them out from context. We promise. That was a lot.
I know. You're really good at this, though.
We also want to thank Camera. Camera is our super producer. She does all the work.
And it's really hard.
Yeah.
I tried one time. It's like impossible.
Yeah, she failed miserably.
I know.
She's like, I don't want to be in front of the camera. It's too hard. Yeah. Now she's like, no, I don't want to be behind the camera. It's too hard. Camera, thank you so much for all that you do. Big round of applause.
For Camera.
You are awesome. All right, the questions are starting to come in, so we will get started in a minute. But before we do, we want to give a huge plug to the Not Crazy podcast. The Not Crazy podcast is the podcast that we host together. You can find it on your favorite podcast player or by going to psychcentral.com/notcrazy.
That's my line. That's the only thing I do. That's my only job. My only job is to read the website. psychcentral.com/notcrazy.
It's my dunce hat.
Oh, I didn't know what we were doing.
Or a unicorn.
Oh, unicorn.
Space unicorn. Is it my turn again?
I only have one job. I'm just saying. I've been practicing. I got it down. I memorized it. I put up with so much. I don't get paid enough for this.
You don't get paid anything.
Well, as I said, not enough.
Please check out the Not Crazy podcast. We cover excellent topics. The latest episode is at the link that is everywhere where you have found this live. Please pass along the replay. We like to do these video chats. They're live. We can't edit them. The podcast is much more polished. Lisa, make sure of that.
Yeah, I do.
All right. Are we ready to go?
I am ready.
With the questions. So we got to do like a check first.
Okay. What's the check?
Is Lisa ready?
I'm ready. Yeah.
I am ready.
Maintain the state of readiness.
All right.
Okay.
And Camera's ready. All right. Ready? The first question is now.
All right. Brittany asks, what's the difference between bipolar and borderline personality disorder?
Bipolar disorder is so first off, they're both mental illnesses, and the difference comes down to symptomology. They do share some symptoms in common, which is why sometimes they get mixed up together. I also think they get mixed up because people accidentally abbreviate both BPD.
Yeah.
BPD is borderline personality disorder. A lot of people think it means bipolar disorder. It doesn't. It mees borderline personality disorder. But borderline is a personality disorder, whereas bipolar disorder is not. Bipolar disorder is hallmarked between extreme lows and extreme highs, and borderline personality disorder is hallmarked by many other things that I don't understand as well, so I don't want to speak to it. I live with bipolar disorder and not with borderline personality disorder, but they are very different, and they require very different treatments, modalities, methodologies, and but both are very serious in their own ways and rights, and one is no more serious and or important than the other. Lisa, you have anything to add?
Bipolar disorder is a mood disorder, and borderline personality disorder is a personality disorder. So different classifications.
Yes, very true. All right. Are we ready for the next question?
I am.
And now. I feel like I'm off screen.
You are. We need to practice that. All right. Cecilia said, oh, perfect. Good job, Gabe. Cecilia asks, is PTSD the culprit, like getaway to Is PTSD the culprit-like gateway to other mental diagnoses?
So
I can't read well today.
this is one of these fascinating concepts that we have in mental health and mental illness, where people think that something needs to lead to something needs to lead to something, and one caused the other. And I understand why, from the outside looking in, it might look that way. Let's speak to bipolar disorder just for a moment. The first symptom that I showed was depression. People thought, oh, well, Gabe is a little bit depressed. He's lethargic. He's not happy. And then
you were treated for depression for years.
Yeah. And then so from a little bit of depression became major depression. And then major depression, well, all of a sudden, mania reared its ugly head. And people are like, what is he doing? Why does he think he's the greatest thing ever? And then it became paranoid and the anxiety, and then psychosis came in, and I thought demons were under my bed. To a lay person, they're like, oh, well, this all started with a little bit of depression. If we would have only treated that, none of the other stuff would have happened. That's not completely true. The reality is I always had bipolar disorder, just different symptoms were coming out at a time. Obviously, getting care sooner is going to reduce the potential of symptoms, but make no mistake, the reason that I have bipolar disorder is not because somebody didn't catch minor depression or major depression or grandiosity or mania. No, it doesn't work that way at all. So is PTSD the culprit for other mental diagnoses? No. If it can be a triggering effect,
that's what I was going to say.
You can be diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, and then they can find out that you also have on and on and on. And it's certainly possible that if you never would have had the trauma, perhaps you never would have suffered the symptoms of major depressive disorder. Lisa knows a ton about cause and effect. So I'm going to shut up and let her talk now.
I think the reason that people might think it's a cause and effect thing is because you have PTSD and you start getting treatment for it, and that's your first contact with the mental health system. So this is your first contact with doctors or therapists or other people who can evaluate the rest of your symptoms. And so you've been having the symptoms all along, but no one noticed or cared, or you didn't talk to anybody about it. But now someone with the training and the expertise to look at it is seeing it, and here comes all these other diagnoses. And you think, hey, that's not how I started out this day. But the behavior was always there. It just wasn't recognized as such. So I think that's why people see it as kind of a gateway, because it feels like that's the beginning. Like I started with this, but now all this other stuff is happening. But no, it was always there. You just didn't realize it.
Very true. All right, Lisa, you ready for the next one?
Okay, I am.
And man, I didn't get to say now.
It's okay.
I know.
You could do it now. Get it? You could do it now. You could do it now.
No. All right, you're right.
Teresa McCall Caraway says, do you ever completely come off mental health meds?
So it's certainly possible, but the safe answer is probably not. And see,
I don't know that that's the safe answer.
The question that I always ask people when they say, do you ever completely come off psychiatric meds is one, what's your diagnosis?
Right. How long have you been taking them?
How long have you been taking them? Why were you put on them? And what's it treating? The reason that I answer so cautiously with this is because we have two unique problems in our country. We have overprescribing of psychiatric medications, meaning people who don't need them are being prescribed them, in which case, yeah, they can come off of them because they didn't need them in the first place. Yeah. And then we have underprescribing of psychiatric medications, people who need to be on psychiatric medications but don't want them for a variety of reasons, or don't have access to them, can't get them. And now let's put those two together. Let's say that I have bipolar disorder, so I'm going to be on psychiatric medication for the rest of my life. And I run up against somebody that was overprescribed. I see them go off their meds and I think, oh, they were on psychiatric medications and they stopped taking them. So I can too. The mechanism that allowed them to come off the medication is much, much different from the mechanism that would allow me to come off my medications. Things like schizophrenia, psychosis, bipolar disorder, these are lifelong illnesses. It's certainly possible that major depressive disorder, anxiety, these can potentially be managed without medication. But I use potentially, it's tough because I believe that medication gets such a bad rap because it is so misunderstood. The reality is if I had diabetes, I would not wonder to myself, hey, do I need to come off this medication? Is it controlling my symptoms? Is it doing well? Now, that unfortunately is not a perfect analogy because, maybe I've lost weight or had a better diet,
Right.
but there's lots of long-term illnesses that need med management long-term, and people are content to get that treatment and live well. And they're not always trying to jump off the next exit. I ask myself a lot, why are people so quick to jump off of the next exit? Is it because of a side effect? Is it because of stigma? Is it because of a misbelief? Is it because something is the cure worse than the disease? Are they not getting information that they need from their doctor? And I just want to be very, 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 very clear that needing long-term psychiatric medication is not a bad thing. And when people start asking this question, I think, what is the underlying question? Why are we searching for this? Lisa, you have anything to add? Are you ready to go to the next question?
Well, I would just say that something like okay, excuse us.
Sorry.
Something like I told you to put that over there.
I
He never
know.
listens to me.
I don't.
Something like 1 out of 8 Americans takes antidepressants. So clearly, really?
I need the coaster.
Oh, all right.
Coaster's important.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You've totally interrupted my flow. All right. Something like 1 out of every 8 Americans takes antidepressants. So clearly that is overprescribed. So when you say, is it ever possible to stop taking them? Well, if you've been overprescribed in the first place, yeah. So I think there's a lot of people who stop and are okay. But again, yes, I would agree with Gabe that it depends on that underlying reason. I have made this mistake many times, tried to stop, never turns out well.
Yeah.
You'd think I'd learn a lesson.
That's what we want to make sure that people don't hear. Your individual results may vary, and you need to discuss it with a doctor independently of what your friends did, what you read on the internet, or your own internal bias.
Yeah.
It's very, very important to keep an open mind in both ways. All right, Lisa, you ready for the next question?
I am. I'm very excited for the next question.
Boop! I pointed wrong. That's my fault.
Allison Hall asks, can symptoms of anxiety and depression change? I've dealt with both for years and I'm starting to have a lot of anger.
Yes, they can absolutely change.
For better and worse.
Yeah, unequivocally. As we learn coping skills, they can get better. As the circumstances in our life change, they can get better. There's so much research.
Just get better with age.
Yeah, it can get better with age. There's so much research into I call them mental illness adjacent things. So, for example, let's say that you're diagnosed with depression, anxiety when you are homeless and living in your friend's basement. And then 5 years later, you not only are treating the depression and anxiety, but you've got a job that you like, and you're living in your own apartment, and you've got a little money in the bank, and you're no longer living in your friend's basement, and you're proud of the work that you're doing. You're volunteering. You've built up those friendships. So the depression and the anxiety is naturally going to lower because you are in a more stable place. Also, along those 5 years, I'd like to think that you learned some different coping skills to get ahead of it. So it's not that the anxiety and depression really changed. It's that you personally changed and are therefore managing it better. Now, Lisa is the perfect person to talk about the next part of your question, which is you're starting to have anger. I
do have a lot of anger.
Lisa's depression turned into uber negativity and uber anger. And that's really your lived experience.
I have a lot of anger.
You do.
I do.
You do.
It's a problem. Although it's not really a problem for me. It's a problem for other people.
Answer the question.
I would say that I personally have experienced this, that my depression has turned into more and more anger as I have gotten older. I'm not quite sure why. And of course, a lot of my symptoms have changed as I've gotten older. And some of that is going to be related to your body. Your body changes as you age, you gain weight, you lose weight, hormonal changes. But yeah, it's very frustrating. I find it extremely frustrating. I feel like I've got this under control. I've been dealing with this for 20 years. We're all good here. And now something changes. It's very frustrating, but yeah, very common and happens all the time.
If you are experiencing anger, again, it's very common, so don't panic, but it's definitely something you're going to want to talk to a therapist about, or bring up in a support group or a peer support group, or just with somebody that you trust. Again, like all the other symptoms of mental illness, the longer you ignore it, the longer you try to tough it out and handle it on your own, the more exploitative the illness can be, the worse it gets, and honestly,
and the more you have to suffer. Who wants to have symptoms when you don't need to?
What that one said. Yeah. All right, Lisa.
Okay, I'm ready.
Boop. I keep pointing in the wrong place.
Well, it's confusing because it's you know what we need? We need a mirror, and then it would go backwards. All right. So Carolyn asks, how does physical anxiety continue to develop even when the mind is calm? I personally do not suffer from anxiety, but this is a good question for you.
So isn't that like doesn't that suck? Like your mind is all rainbows and unicorns and a calm day, but yet your heart starts to race a little bit, right? And you get a little sticky, and maybe your mouth gets dry, and you're thinking to yourself, what's the problem? I'm safe. You're looking around and you're like, I'm on my couch. I don't, I've, this is a rerun of a television show I've watched 100 times. I've got my favorite food. Why is this happening? I'll tell you why this is happening. Because as much as we forget, our brains are connected to our body. So our mind is calm, but something is going on. It's all one big ecosystem. So it's certainly possible to not have any physical symptoms, but have your mind race. And the opposite is also true. And it confuses us because we always think that the mental symptoms come before the physical symptoms, but it doesn't always work that way. Sometimes the physical symptoms crop up first. And I believe, I'm not a doctor, I believe that the fact that you're starting to recognize this is actually really, really positive for you. You're starting to notice that, okay, these symptoms are coming up separately. I remember the first time that I realized that, my heart racing or sweatiness or dry mouth was associated with a panic attack. Because when I first started, a panic attack was full-blown everything. My mind was gone. I was a sweaty mess. My heart was racing. I had vertigo. I couldn't stand. It was a clump of symptoms. Then as I learned, I started separating them out. That was real progress for me. It especially allowed me to get ahead of it because I was like, hey, why is my mouth dry? What's going on with that? Is this the start of an anxiety attack, a panic attack, an anxiety issue? Am I nervous? Do I need to calm down? Do I need to take a break? Do I need to walk away? Do I need to sit for a minute? And this headed off a lot of things. I know that that was not part of your original question, Caroline, but I want to say, noticing what's happening in your body and your mind, advanced skill. Give yourself a big round of applause. Lisa, thoughts?
Oh, I would agree. I'm actually curious. You're
I
going to
like
have
it
to tell
when
me
you
more.
agree.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm actually curious. How long do you think that was after you'd been diagnosed with anxiety disorder before you felt like you developed more of this awareness of yourself?
I mean, it definitely took probably 6 months to a year, and
Pretty fast.
that's what's tough, right? Maybe the first time I noticed it was 2 months later, but I had to notice it enough times that it started to commit to memory that I was noticing, right? What is you have to see a commercial 12 times to commit it to memory, and then you have to see it another 12 to take action. So you have to see a commercial 24 times before you'll buy the product or go to the restaurant or respond. So obviously you saw it a whole bunch of times that you just don't remember. So I'm sure that it probably went faster, but I started to learn coping skills, and it was really amazing.
Really?
It was really amazing. All right, you ready for the next question?
Absolutely. Yes.
You're going to say absolutely
ready.
again?
Maybe, you think it's a problem, but it could be my catchphrase.
Your catchphrase is absolutely.
Well, I didn't say it was a good catchphrase. I just said, now I have one. Okay. Next question.
Boop.
Good job.
Yay. Oh, this is a you question.
Why?
Because I don't know anything about pregnancy.
What do you suggest women do when they want to get pregnant and can't take their meds during the pregnancy and when breastfeeding? Are there alternatives? Again, not doctors, but I would say yes, absolutely. You want to talk to your doctor, you want to talk to your obstetrician and your psychiatrist. One, I had a cousin, got pregnant, taking psychiatric meds, wanted to stop, but her doctor discouraged that, saying that, you have to have a healthy mom to have a healthy pregnancy. And so it's just so individualized. And how do you decide? On the one hand, you feel like you don't want really? On the one hand, you feel like you don't want to do that, you don't want to take that risk, etc. But if you're a mess, if not taking this medication is going to make you have an episode or your symptoms get much worse, how is that going to lead to a healthy pregnancy? Or God forbid, if your symptoms become so much worse that you become suicidal or manic, that isn't going to lead to a healthy baby either. So it's just such an incredibly individualized decision on what risk are you willing to take and how are you willing to balance this. And yeah, they have all sorts of different meds these days. It's amazing where pharmacology has gotten us. So between your psychiatrist and between your psychiatrist and your obstetrician, hopefully you can find a balance of this that works for you. And again, I feel like women feel you already have the stigma against psychiatric medication, and there's this whole cult of true motherhood where you have to do whatever it takes for the pregnancy. So I think there's a lot of pressure on women to stop their psychiatric medication, and because, hey, you can just tough it out, don't you want to do it for your baby? Well, but again, if you're in a bad way, how does that lead to a healthy pregnancy? So it's a very difficult question. It's so individualized.
There's obviously a lot of stigma when it comes to a lot of these things.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was newly diagnosed, I stigmatized myself saying, hey, you can't be a parent. Why can't I be a parent? Because I have bipolar disorder. That was the end of it. All I needed was the diagnosis and the end. The end. Somebody with bipolar disorder is clearly going to be a bad father, and somebody without bipolar disorder is going to be a good father. Clearly nonsense. Just what incredible nonsense was spewing in my brain. I did not make that up. That was put there by society.
Yeah.
That's the closest that I can come with lived experience to relate to your situation. But I want you to know that so many people are afraid to have these difficult conversations with their doctor. And I hear from a lot of people that they brought it up to their doctor and their doctor was like, no, you shouldn't do that.
Right.
That
One
isn't,
size fits all, dismiss you out of hand.
yeah, find a new doctor. All right. This is, motherhood is hard. Parenthood is hard. I'm just an uncle. Being an uncle is hard. And this is part of advocating for you and your child. If your doctor is not giving you the information and the advice that you need, it's time to find another doctor or another doctor after that, because this is something that's going to be with you for your entire pregnancy and the child's entire life. You want to make sure that you're advocating from the start to get like super, 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 super good care and super good help to make sure that you have a healthy child and the child has a super healthy mother.
Yeah. Excellent answer, Gabe.
Yeah. You too. Oh, yeah. Ready for the next question?
I am.
All right, ready. High five.
Yeah. So why? See, we're in the same room. You don't need to look at the screen to high five. You could just look at me to high five.
All right, here we go.
Okay. All right, perfect. I think that was a compliment to our high five. Thank you very much. I sometimes hear voices in my head as an outward voice. I recognize them as distinct from my own voice, but are certainly a part of my thinking. Am I crazy or imaginative?
You're neither.
Or both.
Hearing
Okay, I'm sorry.
Hearing voices is, you're not crazy. It's the name of our podcast. The hearing voices is a symptom of mental illness. It's a symptom of psychosis. Maybe. And she's hearing voices. What else is it a symptom of?
It might be a symptom of nothing. It might just be she might just be imaginative. It might just be her personality.
I can only go with what she says is I hear voices.
Right. But then she says, am I crazy or imaginative? All right.
I don't know what to say to that.
No, I'm just saying, I think this
maybe your personality is for your arm to be broken.
I think that this is a very individualized question, and how this is going to be something that you're going to have to tease out yourself with a doctor. You don't agree? Gabe does not agree. Why don't you tell us what you think, Gabe?
If you're hearing an outward voice and it is distinct, there's some key words in your question. It's distinct from your own voice. You recognize it as a part of your own thinking, but you're hearing the voice that is, you are describing psychosis. There is no definitive test, and there are people like Lisa in the world that believe that this makes you special or a better artist.
I'm not saying any of those things.
I think that you are describing a very distinct symptom of a mental disorder, and you need to get it checked out immediately. Yes. It doesn't make you crazy, and I don't know if it makes you imaginative or not, but it's definitely a symptom of mental illness. I think that it's important to figure out why you are distinctly hearing voices in your own head as an outward voice, and get that checked out immediately. I think that's really important. It's really important to have that discussion with your doctor. It's really important to tread lightly with a symptom like that, because they can get worse. And
this has the potential to go very badly.
And this is how come I'm responding to Lisa's, oh, well, maybe it's part of your personality.
That's not what I'm saying.
But that's exactly what you said.
Let me rephrase. What I'm trying to say is that this is absolutely something you should get checked out. You don't want to take this chance, but in terms of the information that we have available here, it's impossible to know. This is the type of thing that a doctor is going to have to go through with you individually and find out. But yes, this is absolutely not something to mess around with. You should go see a doctor. I feel like that goes perfectly with my previous answer. You cannot declare someone is 100% for sure mentally ill over the internet. That's
I didn't.
impossible.
You're going to go watch the replay. And
I
what I
feel like you did.
specifically said is that hearing voices is a symptom of mental illness. And you said, no, it's not.
Well, I'm saying
Hearing
not,
voices could just be part of your personality.
It is a symptom, but it doesn't have to be.
What?
Coughing could be a symptom of tuberculosis, but that doesn't mean tuberculosis is what caused your cough.
What else could it be
This
a
is a symptom
of?
of mental illness, but that doesn't mean you have mental illness. What?
Hey, I am reading we are starting a fight in the comments section. Half the people are on my side, half the people are on your side. So the world may never know.
Well, but the very clear advice we want to give is that this is not something to try to handle on your own. You need professional help on this one.
Maybe. Actually,
no, I don't know. That is not up for debate.
Yes, it is. It's right there. I'm reading it. I don't know what you want. I'm not disagreeing with you. The internet is disagreeing with you, dear.
I think that this is absolutely something you want to get checked out. But in terms of what is it for sure, no one can say. That's the type of thing that a team of doctors and professionals will have to look at you individually and say.
I feel like any minute now, the mighty is going to give us the hook. So we should move on to the next question.
All right, we're waiting for the next question. All right.
Yay! Ooh, Lisa, you know this one.
Renee Holder asks, what are the differences between bipolar type 1 and 2?
Go for it. You know the answer.
Do I know the answer?
Mm-hmm.
I think I know the answer, and I'm afraid I'm like, do you know the answer?
Ooh, let's see if you know the answer, and I'll correct you if you're wrong.
Okay, I feel that the difference between bipolar type 1 and 2 is that 2 never goes into full-blown mania.
Correct.
Okay.
2 stops at hypomania. So they both start off with the suicidal depression, and they
don't start off. They both contain.
Correct. Yeah. Thank you.
You don't know where your symptoms will start.
Correct. Right. They both have the low of suicidal depression, and then bipolar 1 goes all the way up to mania, and bipolar 2 stops at hypomania. Listen, one of the things that I always say when this question comes up is people say to me all the time, well, that means 1 is worse than 2. No, that's
it's just a classification system.
Yeah, it's absolutely a classification system that classifies your symptoms so that you can get the best treatments possible. 1 is not more severe than the other or worse than the other. It's just a differences in how your symptoms manifest, and that's what comes up with bipolar 1 or 2. That's it.
I consider that doctors need a way to talk to each other and have everybody know what they're talking about.
Right.
So all of these classifications is just a way for people to say, okay, this, and then everyone knows what it means right away. So it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't, because they use the numbers, it makes people think that there is a value judgment in between them and that 1 is worse, but it doesn't work that way. And again, it's just the difference just being in those 2 different classifications.
Sorry, I understand that we went away for a second, but we are back. You know, the internet is a scary place. The mighty did not fire us, as far as we know. All right, are you ready for the next question?
Yes.
All right. Here we go.
How do you manage anxiety when it's your 15-year-old child that is causing it and then it just consumes me? I'm so scared that something bad is going to happen to him and it has overtaken my life.
This is an excellent opportunity to discuss the exact thing that is causing your anxiety. Mm-hmm. I shouldn't say most anxiety, but some anxiety, a lot of anxiety is free floating. You have this free floating anxiety. You're unsure what's happening. You don't know what's going on. It's hard to pinpoint. It's hard to get a grasp on that. That's very hard to fight, right? It's like shadow boxing. You don't know where it's coming from. You have a very specific catalyst, for lack of a better word, or trigger for your anxiety. Focus, yeah. This is where you absolutely need to discuss with a professional why your 15-year-old is invoking this response from you. And so often people don't want to do this because they fear that it makes them a bad parent, or that they're insulting their child, or that something has gone wrong in their parenting. Forget about all of that. That's just not how illness works. It's just not. So what I would recommend strongly is to meet with a therapist and tell them exactly what you just told us and approach it from that way. It's no different than if you were consumed by, being terrified of snakes. You would want to talk to a therapist about being afraid of, snakes or spiders or whatever. Just because it's your 15-year-old son doesn't, or 15-year-old child, doesn't mean anything more than that's just how this particular part of your illness has manifested, and that's what we have. So
it's not a value judgment based on the child.
Very, very much so. Lisa.
The thing I would say is because you specifically say it has overtaken my life. So that tells us that this is not just your typical parental worry that everybody has. This you're suffering. This is a problem. It has become extreme. So time to get that looked at.
Very good. All right. Are we ready for the next question?
Yes, definitely. I'm going to make a list of synonyms to absolutely.
Boop.
What are the effects of PTSD developing in persons affected by another close loved one, CPTSD? Please address the dissociative pieces of PTSD in the response if you could.
Lisa? This one might be above our heads, sincerely. Honestly, it's... Yeah, this one, for me personally, this is a very important question, and PTSD is nothing to be trifled with. And I think a lot of mental health advocates think of PTSD as like mental illness light, and it's not. And honestly, I very much want to provide you with an answer. I sincerely don't have one, and I don't think that I'm qualified to speak on it because I haven't done enough research, and it's also not part of my lived experience. As much as I genuinely want to answer your question, I don't feel that I have an answer that is good, which is the longest way to say I don't know, and I'm sorry as possible. Lisa, do you have any information?
I actually no. I personally do not have PTSD. Neither do you. So we can't really speak on that from personal experience. The only thing I would say is that if you have a loved one and something is going on with them, of course it affects you. Why wouldn't it? You care about this person. And anything that happens to them, it doesn't have to be PTSD, a car accident, losing a job, good things, getting married, having a baby. Anything that happens to those you care about is going to affect you as well.
Yes. Thank you so much for asking. And I'm sorry that we could not provide the answer. All right. The next question is boop. Yay.
Why does every new doctor, like when you move or your doc retires, feel a need to re-diagnose and re-prescribe? Excellent question.
Yeah, that's a great question. Mental illness does not have a definitive blood test. That's
or any definitive test for that matter.
Right. That is kind of the bummer of it, because this is why I think stigma persists, because people think that you're faking, and on and on and on. I believe that no doctor wants to take the word of the previous doctor because doctors inherently don't trust other doctors. I don't mean that the way that it comes out. It's just, could you imagine if there was an error? In physical illness, if you walked up to a new doctor and said, "Hi, I have cancer," and you didn't have any definitive testing that the doctor recognized as concrete, the doctor would retest you for cancer. That is unfortunately just like a blood draw, and they probably wouldn't even have to ask. They could just do it behind the scenes to confirm the diagnosis. Confirming the diagnosis in mental illness takes a lot more patient engagement, which means you got to sit through another hour appointment. You got to answer all of the questions. You got to go through your medical history again. And it feels a lot like we're justifying our existence or our illness.
Or even going backwards.
Yeah. I want to assure you that it's not. They're being very thorough. If you were misdiagnosed, the new doctor will discover that. If you are on medications that aren't working, the new doctor will discover this. It is a pain. It's a super, super pain, but in a way it's thorough. And I as much as I hate that pain, I'm trying desperately to instill upon you that it's just such a pain. I respect it. I respect the fact that they want to be thorough, and I like that. I do like that part. Lisa?
Well, I think the obvious answer is because there is some element of subjectivity in a diagnosis of mental illness. Because again, we do not have any, at this time, hopefully we will someday, any objective tests. You can't do an x-ray or a blood test and get a for sure answer. It's all about observation, and doctors have to use, it's not an exact science. There's a lot of art to this. They're using their own experience, their own opinions, their own what's the word I'm looking for? Expertise. So it's not inconceivable that you get two people who have different opinions on this subject.
Excellent. All right. Thank you so very, very much. All right. You ready for the next question?
Yes.
And ready, I'm going to line it up.
Okay. You're going to write it up.
Boop.
You are getting so good at that. So good.
You're up.
What are some good tips for people with chronic illnesses that are starting to have a major negative impact on their anxiety and depression?
Well, we have your resident chronic illness expert, Lisa Kiner, who also has depression. Lisa.
I would say that the number one thing is to make sure all of your doctors have all of the information, because you feel like, I don't really need to tell my psychiatrist about my fill in the blank. And of course, when you go to see your oncologist, you think, oh, I don't really need to mention that mental illness. That's not important. So you want to make sure they all have all of your information, know all of the drugs that you're taking, know everything that's going on with you. And of course, frequently, sadly, there's a lot of stigma even amongst doctors. So for example, your oncologist is going to be like, well, we don't really need to worry about that. I mean, you have cancer, for God's sakes. You don't need to worry about your depression. You've got so many more serious things going on. No, don't accept that. If you have found a doctor that is not treating your or is not taking your mental illness seriously, or it feels like it can be sat to the side while you deal with other problems, get a different doctor if possible. Because you want to be treating your entire person, not just little individual bits and pieces. And Gabe, you had that happen years ago. Gabe had a surgery complication, and the nurse in the hospital actually said to me, when I said we need to make sure that he gets his
bipolar medication,
that he gets his mood stabilizers, because here we are in a hospital and we don't have him with us. We need to make sure he gets those. And she actually said to me, oh, he has such bigger problems right now. No, he doesn't. And it really annoyed me. And I said, he has spent literally years getting stable on this medication. And now is not the time to lose that progress and to lose where he is. So when you get cancer or diabetes or have a heart attack, now is not the time to also get more depressed.
Right.
So yeah. Very frustrating.
All right. Are we ready?
I am.
I think we're ready.
I am ready.
I can't tell. I'm looking at the magic thing and it says both not ready and ready.
Well, that's because it goes with time.
Ready, yay! All right.
It goes with time.
And boop.
I will take this opportunity to have a drink.
Boop. I feel like I'm booping.
She says she's frozen.
No.
Ooh, she moved.
Hey!
All right. Renee Holder asks, is it okay to engage in a variety of therapy options at the same time, like peer groups and counseling, etc.?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Unequivocally.
You want to use all the resources at your disposal.
Yes. I love the I call it the 1-2 punch, but it can be the 1-2-3-4 punch. They all fill a different need, right? Traditional one-on-one therapy, like cognitive behavioral therapy, it's very one-on-one. It's with a professional, a trained therapist, and that has its own flavor and feel. But a peer support group, that can be very cheerleady, or just, getting advice or questions or finding out resources. And also, therapy looks different in so many ways that I don't think we acknowledge. And I think it's very important to understand that. In Ohio, and I can only speak for Ohio because that's where I'm from, we have a place called peer centers. And people are playing cards or eating lunch or even participating in an activity like going on a field trip or cleaning up the room or watching television. And they're like, well, this isn't support. This isn't therapy. This isn't. I'm like, yeah, it is. You're with a bunch of like-minded people working on an equivalent goal, exchanging information together. And even when you go walk around the building or share a slice of pizza or play a game of cards, you're just, hey, has anybody heard of X? Yeah, we have. It all matters so much. So yes, somebody, I believe it was Jennifer Swanson, said, build your team. Yes.
Excellent advice.
Build your support team. Yes.
Careful.
I got excited.
He keeps smacking the microphone, so I apologize for the audio trouble.
Thank you so very much for that question, Renee.
All the resources that are available to
Absolutely.
you.
Attack it on all fronts.
Yeah.
All right, ready?
Oh, seriously? All right. There.
I don't know why you keep saying seriously like it's me.
Because we're both trying to do it. Here, do it with your right hand. That's the problem. There you go.
Yay!
See, you totally got this down.
All right. Next question.
All right. Trisha HG says, can you have both bipolar and BPD, or borderline personality disorder?
Yes. Now, different doctors have different theories of how this all goes together, and diagnoses may vary, et cetera. There's also, schizoaffective disorder. There's bipolar disorder with psychotic features. There's borderline personality with just it's. Sometimes I think we get hung up on names, but to specifically answer the question of can you have bipolar disorder and borderline personality disorder at the exact same time? Yes, that is a diagnosis that you can have and receive treatment for. It is not uncommon. So yes, but I don't want anybody that went to their doctor who said, well, that's not true. You would have X instead. The DSM-5 is a gigantic book filled with lots of information, and different doctors write things down differently. But yes, you absolutely can. All right, you ready?
Yeah, nothing really more to add that. Yes, the answer is yes.
Went away again.
It says live in the corner.
Oh, I got excited. I thought camera was going to come up.
Oh, well, maybe someday. Maybe someday we too will get to see camera.
Camera's awesome. Everybody say hi to camera. Hi, camera. You're the best.
Doing great.
Sorry we disappeared for a moment. All right, are we ready for the next question?
What that's about? Do you think it's your computer?
I think it's a free service called Facebook. I don't.
No, that's fair. All right, you get what you pay for.
All right. Yeah. Next question.
Okay. Yeah, next question might take a moment coming.
It's okay. We unbroke it. I mean, that's got to count for something.
Well, someone in the there we go. All right, Crystal Henderson asks, how does PTSD get diagnosed? And the answer is going to be the same way as every other mental illness, with observation, medical history, patient interviews. Once again, no definitive test. No, you can't get an X-ray. You can't get a blood test. So this is going to be about the doctor talking to you, listening, and categorizing.
Everything that she said, it's diagnosed by a trained medical professional. Mm-hmm. Please don't armchair diagnose on your own, et cetera. Please see a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a nurse practitioner, general practitioner, anybody qualified to diagnose mental disorders. And yeah, the exact same way. Talk to the doctor, give them your symptoms, answer their questions. It's observational. And once you get that diagnosis, you'll be able to move forward. And there you go.
Well, and I do have to agree. Someone's in the comments saying that, let's not get too hung up on diagnosis. What does matter is how you feel and if your treatment is working for you or not. But at the same time, having a diagnosis is important because then you kind of know at least which path to head down. It gives you someplace to start at least.
But I think, in fairness, that would be the difference between having no diagnosis and this diagnosis versus that diagnosis or this diagnosis. It's fascinating to me. I met a gentleman, a really, really cool guy, and he's in his 80s. And he found me online. He created a Facebook page a couple of years ago, and we had lunch. And I said, you have bipolar disorder as well? And he said, no, I have manic depression. Oh, and I said, okay. Well, manic depression and bipolar disorder are the same thing. And he goes, no. When I was diagnosed many, many years ago, before I had children, before I had a wife, I was diagnosed with manic depression. That is what I have been managing, treating, and fighting my entire life. I'm not ready to call it something different because I am aware and prepared for manic depression. Now, I could, of course, correct him and tell him that it changed, but I understood what he said. He's ready, he's prepared, he's comfortable. And I thought at the time a rose by any other name. And so it's fascinating that as science continues and we start changing the names of things and updating things, this gentleman who was diagnosed in literally the 50s and 60s, he's like, look, I'm keeping this diagnosis. It doesn't matter. Now, I'm sure his doctor has written down bipolar disorder 1,000 times behind his back, but that's what he's comfortable with. And it doesn't matter because he's well. He's married, he's got children, he's got grandchildren, he's got a Facebook page, he's having lunch with weird people he meets online. He's doing awesome. So in that way, I agree with him not to get hung up on it. I agree with you.
That's interesting. I wouldn't have thought of that. But yeah, it becomes part of your own personal narrative, and you don't want that changing.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of it that way.
I think I would struggle if they changed the name of bipolar disorder to...
I just hadn't thought of it that way. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. All right. Okay.
It's the same reason why we still call Kroger, Bilo. Because it was Bilo when we were kids. My grandparents call it the Five and Dime. Yeah. It's the same building.
Go down the road and turn left where the gas station used to be.
Yeah. Very true. All right, you ready for the next question?
Next question.
And boop.
You're so good at that now. Oh no, the force has failed us.
Hey, I feel solid.
Do you think therapists can benefit from specialist bipolar training, or do you think that different modes work regardless of specialist knowledge of particular diagnoses slash conditions?
This is a Lisa question because she loves learning and understands the power of.
Also, you are my favorite podcast. You're the best. Thank
We
you.
did it.
Oh.
We accomplished something together other than a miserable marriage.
We accomplished lots of
Yay!
stuff.
Oh,
We had this whole podcast thing going.
that's it.
What do you mean that's it? We did other stuff. We successfully fundraised. Oh, for God's sakes.
Can you pop up the other question camera so that we got excited that somebody complimented us? Lisa, talk all about specialized training and why it is so incredibly valuable.
I don't really feel like it needs explained. I mean, yes, absolutely. You want to be with someone who is an expert in what is specifically about you. I would say that most therapists are kind of generalists. They're kind of like the general practitioners of mental health, right? But obviously the best care is from the person who has the most experience and training dealing with your particular issues. So I would say that when you say, well, different modes work regardless, well, I mean, yeah, I guess.
Sure, potentially, yeah.
But won't they work in a perfect world? They would work better. So let's give everybody the best odds. Let's use all of our resources and give ourselves the best possible chance. Can it work without? Sure, of course. And I'm sure that it does for many people. But if you have the option, why wouldn't you take it?
I'm really a firm believer on knowledge is sort of like money. You can never have too much.
Right.
I don't know anybody that's like, oh, you want to give me $10 million? No, I'll just take 9.
Yeah, the extra.
Yeah, that's knowledge is really, really important. To your question of will it work regardless? Maybe. I really want to see somebody that has like 5 different plans of attack. That way, if the first one doesn't work, we've got more, right? And so often they have like the one idea, and I'm like, that's not working for me. And they're like, well, that's the one I got, and then I got to switch therapists.
Yeah.
So that's to think about as well. But of course, that said, if you only have a hammer and you happen to run into a nail, I guess you don't need any other tools. But by and large, you're going to run into other issues that you're going to need more than a hammer to resolve. All right, Lisa, you ready for the next question?
I am. I'm always ready for the next question.
Here we go.
All right. Marina asks, do you have panic attacks and what are you doing then? But try to speak slowly because your language isn't mine too. Well, thank you for watching from wherever you are.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, I have panic attacks, and Lisa has witnessed many panic attacks. So I think that she will have probably good information when I am done. What I do for my panic attacks is, first, I learned all about them. I used to think that panic attacks were hunger. I thought all of the symptoms of my panic attacks were me having hunger pains. I thought that that's what was going on. So the first thing that I needed to do was learn what a panic attack was, what it felt like, what my mind did, what I saw, the sensations in my body. And that was really, really helpful because once I figured out all of the symptoms of a panic attack, I could start to get ahead of them. If my hands got clammy, I could think, okay, well, maybe I need to slow down. Now is not the time to push forward because I'm starting to get anxious, or I'm starting to get panicked, or I'm starting to get worried. And that made a little panic attack get smaller, rather than before a little panic attack would explode because I didn't know any better. I literally poured gas on a fire because I thought that was the treatment. That's what I do about them. And then, of course, I have coping skills, things that help. Let's say that I notice a panic attack is coming on and it's just a little one. I sit down. I get away from the group or the stimulus or the activity. I take big, deep breaths. I get something to drink, water or a soda. I become very mindful of what I'm drinking. I step outside. I ask the people I'm with to excuse me for a moment, to just take a few so that I can just really recenter myself. And there's probably more coping skills than there are people on the planet because everybody is different and unique and combines them in different ways. But for me, what I did about them was learn how to recognize them and learn what coping skills help me manage them. And then the third thing, which I think is very important, is learn to forgive myself when I can't control it, because after all, it's an illness. It's like beating yourself up for sneezing. There's only so much you can do to prevent a sneeze. At some point, I will have a panic attack, even though I did everything right, and I have to be cognizant of that. I'm going to turn it over to Lisa, because Lisa, she was the first person to realize that I was having panic attacks. I just thought I was hungry, and she was like,
You thought it was a lot of things.
I thought it was a lot of things, but I mostly thought it was hunger.
Well, I would say that what you do now is, it seems whenever you start to have a panic attack, or when you're in the midst of a panic attack, is you seem to take a step back, try to remove yourself from the hustle, or like if we're out someplace, tries to go someplace maybe a little quieter, away from other people, and just try to come down and basically wait it out once you get started down the road.
Yes.
I would say that the thing that's really worked for you is that you do all this stuff in preparation. Like, you have a plan. If it used to be you'd have a panic attack and, oh, here we go. But now you have a plan in place. You know what you're going to do. You've already lined up which coping skills you're going to start out with. And that has made a big difference. Just this acknowledgement that panic attacks will happen, because of course, a while back you were like, oh no, it will never happen again. I don't need to make any plans or learn anything, because this is the last time. So that has made a big difference, that you are having more of a plan of attack in mind when it happens, and letting the people around you know what it is, so that they can also help you recognize it a little bit.
Yeah. And involving my friends and family has been very helpful in running interference. And I involved Lisa right away, but now I just involve everybody. If you become my friend, you get the How to Survive Bipolar Disorder, Depression, and Anxiety and Panic Attacks masterclass taught by Gabe Howard.
I think preparation, and then of course you did identify some of your triggers and tried to limit them as much as possible. But that's not always possible. Sometimes you don't know what it is, and of course sometimes you can't eliminate it. So yeah, the preparation, I think, has done it for you.
All right, are you ready for the next question?
Mm-hmm.
And here we go.
All right, Jennifer Swanson asks, can you guys speak on the team building aspect of the business of your own and owning mental wellness?
Yeah, this is arguably one of my favorite things. People ask me all the time, what is the most important component to managing bipolar disorder or depression or anxiety or schizophrenia? And like little debates break out even before I answer the question. Well, it's clearly medication. Well, it's clearly therapy. Well, it's clearly peer support. Well, it's just on and on and on. And it's a little bit fascinating to watch. And I always say this, I say, take your home. Just think about your home for a minute. Analogy. And what is the most important feature of your home? Is it the roof? Is it electrical? Is it plumbing? Is it internet and cable? Is it heat? What is it? Like, is it bathrooms? I mean, you can break it down as far as you want. And people look at me and they're like, look, if any of those things were missing from my home, if I came home and my apartment didn't have electric, I wouldn't care how well the plumbing was working. And I'm like, exactly. You really need all of these things to reach wellness. You need a strong support system. You may need medication. You may need therapy to help guide you. You may need coping skills. You need support of your friends and family. You need understanding of your own illness so that when you're alone with your thoughts, you can self-soothe. You need everything. And what I did, and what Lisa did, is we built all that brick by brick. There's unfortunately not like a starter kit. We had to learn each thing at a time and then get better at each one and then keep it in our back pocket. I like the team building analogy. I like toolkit. I believe that toolkits are just so incredibly powerful. And if you're a general contractor, your toolbox has tons of tools in it. Now, yeah, of course, there's tools that you use more than others. Screwdrivers and hammers are always going to rise to the top. But if you ask any contractor what the most important tool is, they're going to tell you it's the one they need at the time to complete the job. It's the single most important tool that there is. And I feel very, very, very strongly that we need to have them all working in concert, directed by you, and that you need to be the team leader of your team, and that all of those things working together has allowed me to be successful, and it's what I see in the people that I talk to that has allowed them to be successful. Lisa, I know you have many thoughts.
Everything he just said. I actually hear that a lot from people too, who say things like, well, I don't need therapy because I have medication, or I don't need peer support because I have this or this or that. Well, but why would you not want to use all of it? If you have multiple resources at your disposal, why wouldn't you want all of them to come together? Why do you only want half of it? Why do you only want electricity? Wouldn't you rather have plumbing and electricity? So, yeah, I, one is not necessarily more important or less important. They all come together as a whole.
Yeah, use them all. Yeah, you're allowed to play favorites. It's not our children or our pets, but
But why, if you
Yeah.
have resources available to you, why wouldn't you want to use all of them?
Use
You
them all.
don't have to limit yourself.
Use them all. Thank you, everybody, so much. My name is Gabe Howard, and I am the host of the Not Crazy podcast. This is
Lisa Kiner, co-host of the Not Crazy podcast, which you can find at psychcentral.com/notcrazy or on your favorite podcast player.
We sincerely hope that you'll check it out. In the description of this, there's the link to our latest episode. It just released today.
Yeah.
And but we hope you'll like them all. Sincerely, we do this largely so that we can interact with people, find out what they like, find out what they looking for. Oh, I'm gone again.
I don't. The thing still says live to me, but that's okay. So
Nope, we're back.
Oh, we're back. Well,
Sincerely,
we're back
everybody,
in time
please-
to say goodbye.
We
So-
sincerely hope that everybody will check out the Not Crazy podcast. It is really, really awesome. It is hosted by us. My name is Gabe Howard. This is Lisa Kiner. It is a very, very, very cool show. We do this so that we can interact with people, that we can learn about topics for the show, and, well, to advertise the show.
So
So
y'all go
if
watch
you
it.
don't check out the show, we just did this for nothing.
Ah.
All right, Lisa, you ready for the high five?
Ooh, high five.
Thank you so much, everybody, and we will see you in a couple of